Hi folks, Des Phoebe here and welcome to this new episode of The Franchise Entrepreneur, Talking Toasties Part 2. As you already know, if you've listened to Part 1, last week I had a very interesting conversation with Laura, our very first guest on the podcast. She is a local entrepreneur who started her own hospitality business and is now starting to consider expansion. Now we go into this in some detail and also compare what people consider the difference between an independent single unit and also a multi-unit brand but still independent, and how people perceive those differences. It was meant to be a single episode, but she raised so many good points that we lost track of time, so we divided it into 2 episodes, and here's part 2. I mean, is it the reason that you want to open up a second one? Is it, I mean, obviously there's a financial side of it. You're hoping that obviously you're going to earn more money. Is that you're kind of thinking that you're to start a chain? Yeah.
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I don't really have a planning process in my head. Things just tend to happen. I think, oh, I'll do that, and then I have a go at it, and it either works or it doesn't. But, I think I've been knocked out by how much people love and support this place. I mean, it's mind-blowing how popular it's been and how nice everybody is about it. So, at the end of the day, I love being here. I absolutely love being here, but there's only so long I'm going to want to come in and grill a toasty every day, before I start getting Groundhog Day, probably more than anything with me. So I think I need another challenge, really. That's what I need. I need something to challenge me, definitely.
I mean, what I would say is that once you start building it up and it gets beyond a certain point, for me, it's started to get easier in some respects. In other respects, it gets more difficult the more you kind of think about all the responsibilities that you've got, because you've got more people that you're employed.
It's going to be a bloody nightmare, isn't it? Because then you rely on staff, aren't you? So the minute one person's missing, I'm screwed.
It is, but at the same time, there's the other side of it, is that if you can build a decent team around you, that you start to be able to have a bit more time and do other things and do other interests whilst you're still potentially earning money from other people, and that's obviously the ideal position you want to get into.
Dream.
But franchising for you, I think, is a definite thing that you should consider.
I just don't know if I'm not too much of a control freak. Like, I find it difficult enough to let somebody, take an order instead of me.
But that was probably good for the first couple of franchises, because you do need to control them.
Yeah.
You obviously you don't want to bash them around the head all the time.
We used to have a cellar chat in the pubs where you take them down in the cellar away from the cameras. That cellar chat, which would be like, well, you can stay, but I'm going to drive you out eventually.
I used to have, when I'd go fresco, all of my staff for the late night, they were all Kurdish and very fiery characters. Yeah. So, there would be times when I'd walk into the store and there'd be tables and chairs all over the place. Oh, was there a fight in here? She said, it was, it was so and so and so and so. And they were the staff. It wasn't, people coming in. It was the staff fighting each other.
I remember being in Café Rouge, I think it was in somewhere in London once, and there was quite a big table of us waiting, and a police car pulled up, and the police went downstairs, and they had Albanian chefs, and one of them had pulled a knife on the other one, and I was like, but am I getting my food? Literally. Yeah.
Well, these were brothers. Yeah.
Well, it's worse though, isn't it? They're more likely to beat each other. Yeah, it can be, and there's a lot of that in kitchens, isn't there? I think that's the other thing with me, is that's why I've tried to avoid that sort of proper kitchen, is because I just don't want to go down that road. But yeah, for me, it's customer service. Customer service is the most important thing for me, and because I've only ever seen it at its most, I've been lucky. I've had a girl, who's worked for the last 6 months, who was fantastic, but that is a rarity. And over the 25 years I've been in the industry, trying to find those people who, like I said, it's people, you really want to please people, and that's ultimately what you want to do in front of the house. I mean, I was discussing actually with Emily, who worked with me, because she suffers from terrible anxiety, and I definitely suffer from anxiety, although much less these days now. I'm much older, but I think that's a really good trait to have in the industry, because of course, if you suffer from anxiety, you never think you're doing things properly, and you'll try extra hard at everything, and that includes trying to make people like you, you know.
Yeah.
So you'll always like go overboard with it. But it's the customer service side of thing. If I go in anywhere, and particularly if I went in somewhere that was my brand, I'll use the term brand, and had a bad experience, God, I'd just be devastated.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite upsetting when you can pay a surprise visit on one of your sites and it's not run the way in which you want. You know, and sometimes it's difficult not to then just step in and do something about it straight away. But when you get to a certain size and you've got a management structure, if you're forever jumping in and doing your manager's job, then you're bypassing the whole system, and then your manager doesn't know what's going on.
Your manager doesn't know how to manage.
Yeah. So it's difficult, and I was a bit of a control freak, because that's what I would do, and I found that quite difficult, because there's a balancing act being stepping away from it and letting your managers manage, because that's what you're employing them to do. But at the same time, you don't want to step away from something and constantly see things going wrong. And if you don't step in, sometimes it can continue to go wrong. I've had those instances as well where I've had to completely restructure the business because it's I was too reliant on individuals and I stepped away too far from it. So learning curve, and I've been doing this 11 years for Walk and Go. So I mean, I went into Walk and Go. I mean, obviously, I went into cafe business with no experience, and as if that hadn't learned a lesson from that, I then decided to go and do an Asian noodle contest. So, what did I know about it? I knew I loved noodles, but I didn't know anything about that at all. And I got all the ideas off the internet. And the first one we opened up on Northgate Street in Chester was trying to persuade my Chinese chef not to put things onto a plate and do it in a noodle box. It took me days of arguing with him because he'd never seen that before. And to try and convince him not to put pig's trotters in to it as well as another thing. It was like, no, I don't want pig trotters in. Oh yeah, really nice. I said, no, big fucking sale.
I think that's the beauty as well, though, with the internet, and that there's so many, especially with this sort of small independence kind of vibe. There's so many places you can just trot out there to Liverpool or Manchester and go. I do that when I do have a day off. I'll go up to Liverpool or Manchester. I've always got a list of places I found on Instagram or whatever, and just go in and sit in them and watch what they're doing, because you just gain so many ideas sometimes from just going to a fresh space and just thinking, just the simplest things sometimes.
Drives my wife mad because I can't sit in a place without sort of making mental notes, and she can see what's going on. She go, because I'm not talking to her. And she go, you're looking at that, aren't you? Okay. And I'm walking down the street. I go, that'd be a great location. Whatever.
Definitely. Or just thinking, damn, why didn't I have this idea? It's brilliant.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Seen a lot of those.
Yeah.
You're a big advocate for independent stores as well. So, because I've seen your posts on social media. People have different ideas on what independent is sometimes. I get it quite a lot because people are 100% certain that we're not independent. And I'm going, well, look, we've created a brand in Walk and Go, but it's not owned by a big company. It's born and bred from Chester. It's something that we created here, and we've just done all right out of it. But it is heavily branded. Yeah,
people have always thought it's a chain. I've spoken to people many, many times and said, no, it's an independent, because I've known that, and people will argue with me saying it's a chain. Yeah. It's like, well, what's a chain?
Well, exactly. Some people,
Do you mean there's more than one of them? Then yes.
Yeah. Independent can be different things, doesn't it? It can be, yourself that has this place and you've started it from scratch, but you're now looking to expand. So at some point, does that become a chain and no longer, it loses its independent credibility?
Well, and ultimately, I think, everybody, it's a business at the end of the day. I remember with was an Indian town, and she sold up because, well, she got married and had a baby, and she sold up. And on social media, people would say, "Oh, that's it," she just didn't care anymore. And ultimately, if you've started a business that you can then sell for a profit, is that not actually the point? Like, nobody's going to hold on to the business forever and go, "Well, I'd never sell it." Someone came along and offered me $3 million. That's the whole point of growing. From one business to several businesses is ultimately we all want to retire, don't we?
Yeah, I guess. I've kind of changed my kind of view a little bit on that over the years, because I went through a really big growth spurt on Walk and Go, and we grew to 30 stores. So we're at 20 now. So we've got rid of a number of ones that just weren't working for us because we expanded too quickly. We expanded right down to the other end of the country, and we couldn't manage it. We didn't have the infrastructure in place. And my view was that at the time, I want to build it as quickly as possible, sell it, and get out and enjoy the money. Unfortunately, at the time, that some of these brands and all started, the casual dining sector took a bit of a hit. The investment companies started backing away a little bit from doing
everything
doing
wasn't
this.
going to be that million.
Yeah. So I kind of then reassessed it, and I just went, you know what, I've put myself under an enormous amount of pressure to get to that point, and I've made mistakes doing it to try and get to there. If I just streamed it back and I just said to myself, well, actually, let's just keep it as a family business.
Yeah, keep it
I can still grow it, via the franchise model.
Yeah.
And with a lot less stress, because we're still at 20 stores, we're still, doing it okay, we're still getting franchise inquiries, we've still got the ability to grow. But if I take that goal away of put myself under stress, I've got to get to 30, 40, 50 stores before I sell it, then you take a hell of a lot of pressure off yourself, because you just go, right, okay, it will do what it's doing. I've got a little plan to take me forward, but I'm not prepared to put myself under that kind of pressure again. So I've kind of changed. My business now, if someone came along and offered me a decent amount of money for it, I probably wouldn't take it, because I know myself that if I took the money, what would I do then?
Oh God, I'd go mad if I didn't work. I'd be bored to death.
Yeah. So the next thing, you would literally be sat there and go, oh, you know what, I've got a great idea, I'll do this other business. Yeah. And then you're back to
starting
square one.
Yeah.
So all the pressure starts again.
Quite comfortably with what you're already about.
So I get that some people will do that because they've got a different mindset, and it's like, I want to retire and I don't want to do anything. I want to stay by a swimming pool, and I want to do this, and I want to travel. I want a lifestyle business. Yeah. So I can do and have the life that I want.
Run your business, have an income, and have a life outside as well.
So it's a big switch in the mindset. And I actually, since I've had that switch in mindset, it's actually been a lot more comfortable and a lot more relaxed about things, because you're not constantly feeling like you put pressure on yourself.
To enjoy it a bit more as well, rather than just constantly thinking, well, when am I going to build it up and stuff?
Yeah. And that's what, the earlier you have that kind of strategy or that mindset, I think the better it will be for you. So you're either building a business to sell, like you said.
Oh, well, that's not my plan. I am absolutely not money motivated at all, not in the slightest. Mine's 100% quality of life. I wouldn't be still here 2 years in if it wasn't, I make, as I say, I make a living. I'm certainly not making money. Most things borrowed really badly when I because I didn't give any money, so I did most of it on credit cards. So whilst I make a living, I'd like to make a better living. Yeah. That's my only.
So build it for the lifestyle you want.
My daughter lives in Spain, so we were talking on the phone with her boyfriend. We were speaking on the phone the other day, and I said, "Wouldn't it be great if I had 3 lockdowns and I could live in Spain ultimately and fly back and forth?" So as an end goal, that would be perfect.
And that's not far. When you look at it, that's within your reach, and it might be surprisingly easier, surprisingly quicker to get to that point than you maybe first realised, because the second store is not as hard as the first one, because if it's a franchise store, you will do the initial bit of work, you'll pass it on to them, then they do the work. And then the third one.
What's the difference then between, so if you say you had 2 cards on the table, and one of them was, the potential to franchise, and the other one was the potential to have investment in order to open up units within your own, with your own rights.
Okay, well, the franchise model, you stay in control of it. You own 100% of that brand. If you take on investment, they're going to want something from you. So they either want you to pay interest in terms of a loan, which it's debt. So if you're comfortable with the debt and paying that back and the interest, then that's fine. If you take on a partner, then obviously they're going to want equity in your business, so they're going to want a chunk of it. Once you have that, you're not in full control then, because they've got an expectation.
Yeah.
And that expectation might be different from yours. So it might be that you only want to get to 3 or 4 shops and then live a lifestyle business. Their expectation might be, actually, I want you to get to 20 stores and I want an exit plan to earn money from it. So,
because ultimately it's going to be pure business in that sense,
so if you're going to go down that route, you've got to have someone right from the beginning who's got the same vision and goals as you have. Otherwise, at some point, you're going to butt heads.
Where do you come in then with the franchising? If I were franchising my business, where do you come in?
Well, we talked about this earlier, and because I really want to help people in Chester who are in business, who've started out exactly how I started out, basically with one store. And I've learned a lot from franchising. I think, I've probably got a lot to offer in terms of what I can.
So on a consultancy basis?
No, I do it for free. Because I'm nice like that. No, but it's a bit of an experiment, because what we're going to do is we record the kind of, the progress on how we do this and how it develops and how you develop and where we go with it. Because we've never, obviously when I started, this was 11 years ago, social media was only just starting then. But I think it would be an interesting story for people to follow. So rather than me just talk to people on podcasts and say, this is how you franchise, I can actually show them.
Well, people want to see it, don't they? Because I think in this country, franchising, it's not a dirty word, but it's the unknown. Like I feel like it's much bigger in other countries than in this country, that people are a bit like
it is, yeah. I mean,
talks about it.
It started in America, big time in America. It's been obviously very popular in America for years. It's become a lot more popular in the UK, because if you look at what's happened in terms of investments, people's pensions are not worth as much as what they used to be. You can't get the kind of returns from banks anymore because the interest rates are so shit.
Yeah.
When there was the economic situation like 2007, 2008, again, property prices dropped, so they weren't getting the returns from that, or even the returns from the stock market. So they were looking for other things to put money into.
And I think they're also they're seeing the success stories, aren't they? Because I have to say, we talked about, I talked to my brother, excuse me, I talked to my brother about Domino's at one point, because he wanted to create a and it just seemed like such a simple thing to do in theory. It's like, here's some money, here's a business already set up with a popular name and brand, so it's highly unlikely it's not going to be successful, particularly with a brand name like that. And so it's a no-brainer for people going into it. And I think this is quite good in the same sense, in that it's non-threatening. Some people look at this as a franchise, even without a hospitality background. I can't imagine it would be that terrifying. Because,
but that's the big advantage that you've got. Because you can, the simpler the model,
they can do it.
Yeah, well, exactly, and the simpler the model and the more familiarity that people have with it. Everyone knows what the Toasties about.
Yeah.
Like everyone knows what the pizza's about.
Yeah.
It doesn't scare them.
Yeah, that's it.
And plus, you've got a lot of advantages in terms of probably planning permissions, because you're not looking at big ventilation and things like that. So you've got an advantage on, because A3 is a pain in the arse. All of mine are A3. I picked the most complicated bloody business model in the world.
It's sandwich bars that made it all a bit of a grey area, isn't it? Once they started making soup and potatoes.
Well, Subway operate largely out of A1s, but even
that's interesting. Do they bake their bread?
They do, but it's I think because again, it's such a grey area.
That's it. I think the minute you put a fryer in, then you there's no way. I think the minute there's more of a fire risk, I think then they're going to be a bit more.
Yeah, if you cook from scratch, you're going to fall into the A3 straight away. But I've known people who, the funny thing is Domino's original outlet in Chester was A1. How they got away with A1, I don't know.
Yeah.
Eventually it caught up with them and the planning.
Well, nobody's really asking though, are they? There doesn't appear to be an officer who's the one who goes, oh, that's a new unit, should we check what it is? Like, nobody asked me. I certainly didn't have to discuss it with anyone. There was never a point where I had to talk about it with anybody else.
I think I've had to jump through a few hoops.
Is that because of planning permission, though? Is that because you've been putting in extractions and things like that, maybe? I don't know.
Probably, but also
that they... the alarm bells.
Well, it's probably my name. I've been around Chester for a long time, so I mean, it's I've had a few businesses in Chester, so it's like, oh, it's him again. Let's have a look at what he's doing this time. And obviously, Walk and Go is always controversial because it has big extraction units. It is A3. It is smelly food. Cooking, it has got oil in it. So it attracts all the things that if I'd known what I was doing years ago, I would not have done an Asian fusion business. I would have mentioned
they're so perishable, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's something that sit in the fridge for a week, is it? A noodle bone, the imagination.
No, it's cooked to it's cooked to order, so it's again it's complicated in terms of your chefing as well, because they've got to have the ability to be able to do that. So again, it's the ball ache of having the training those chefs. It's not Subway. They're not just a conveyor belt making the sandwiches.
No,
they've got to have some knowledge of what they're doing, and you know what chefs are like to deal with. And you've got 4 of them in a kitchen together. And it's an open kitchen.
It's the hardest part of hospitality, I think, is the kitchen. As long as I've managed restaurants and pubs, kitchen's always been an absolute nightmare. Just managing. I'm not sure it's not to do with gender, in all honesty, as a female manager. It's never easy to control 5 Polish chefs.
Yeah. I don't think people realise how much stress and pressure there is in the kitchen. It's really stressful. I didn't realise that.
The hours, the majority of good chefs I've worked with, certainly when I was working in high-end restaurants in Mayfair, they work 80-hour weeks and in a basement, so they didn't see any daylight either. And then all the heat around this area, I mean, basically, no wonder they're all mental.
It's stressful. They're messing around with this wok all day long. And they've got sharp instruments in their hands a lot of the time, so you don't really want to have an argument. No,
it's a very high pressure. I've learned myself. I've been on the floor when you get super, super busy and everything's going wrong and da-da-da-da. But ultimately, I think you've got that customer-facing thing where you can communicate with customers and tell them what's happened. Where if you're in a kitchen, and I've learned that here, certainly when we first started, and 1 minute you're empty, the next minute you're full, and there's 20,000 deliveries going, and you are going down. The stress levels of that, just like there's nothing quite like it. Is there?
If you've got an open kitchen as well, and you've got all these kind of,
I've been crying while I'm making sandwiches before now, trying to keep it together, but just knowing that it's just too, at some point it's all going to go horribly wrong because people are waiting too long, and then you drop something and then that's it. It can be tough.
So, I mean, look, if you're interested in franchising or exploring it and going a bit further with it, it's not going to cost you anything, so,
Just don't know, there is an element, and the negativity on my side is that it, the negativity for me is that it does feel a bit like, I don't know what the word is, I don't know how to describe it. Yeah, I guess so in some ways, but then, how different is it to opening a second unit and putting staff in who ultimately you're paying rather than somebody who's paying you to have their own business, in which case you'd imagine they're going to be invested in it,
But the reality is that to Joe Blogs are walking into your store, they're not going to know whether it's franchised or whether you own it.
Yeah.
Obviously, in terms of your trust in the franchisee to run it properly and maintain the standards that you've currently got.
I could just imagine me going, I don't like them, sorry, they can't have it. Because I didn't gel with them, but then I guess
sometimes you do need to turn people away.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when I was growing to 30 stores, I didn't do that. Because I was chasing the goal of a certain size.
Just super excited at how fast it was growing.
Franchise consultant was introducing people, and I was going, "Oh, okay, have they got the money? Yes, they've got the money. All right, okay, we can train them to do the rest." But sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
You can't train an attitude into people. If they've got the wrong attitude at the start, and they look shifty, and it's something about them you don't like, but you ignore your feelings because you're going, oh, okay, that's one more tick on the box. I've done that city now, and I can move on to the next one. that's when it becomes dangerous because you're growing for all the wrong reasons, and
they're at the end of the day, they're representing your
can do a lot of damage.
Business. Yeah, that makes absolute sense. Is it you that's doing Dodo?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that coming? When's that opening?
It's going to be open. I think we're going to do a soft opening on the 17th or 18th, and then we're going to be open probably. I think is it the Saturday the 20th? I think it's around about that date anyway. Yeah. So we're getting there. It's taking shape. Again, talking about chefs, because we wanted it to be authentic. Because what we're doing is the Neapolitan style pizzas. So we wanted Italian chefs for it, which has been really difficult for us to find, but we found them. Or we found the head chef that's Italian, and we found one other, and the rest of them are going to be English. So
chefs in Chester, isn't it?
No, well, we've looked.
The biggest shortage of.
I went down to London to try and find chefs. I was literally. We got these little cards made up that were Italian on one side, English on the other. I was going into Francomanca. I was going into
really
Pizza Pilgrims, and I was just when the manager wasn't looking. Have one of those. And we still struggled.
Ruthless.
Still struggled. But this is what I mean. People are stealing chefs and staff from each other because there's such a shortage of really good quality chefs out there. And even if you take the view of I'm going to train people up, because that's what you can do at the end of the day. Once you get a good head chef, you can train people up.
Yeah.
But then it's keeping them, because all that happens is that someone comes in and offers them an extra £1 an hour or something, and
they're not loyal. Yeah. It's true, because ultimately, unless maybe you do find somebody who's Italian who wants to cook pizza, they're not necessarily cooking something that is their ultimate goal and passion anyway, so they could be bought out for something else.
Well, originally, I tried to, style in the marketplace.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a partnership with him because he had all the knowledge and everything, and he wanted to open up his own restaurant, and I went, okay, well, Jack Burrito is closing. It's going into the dark kitchen thing. It hasn't quite worked for us there. We've got a place here. How about we do something together? But we just couldn't come to terms on.
I think he's very blinkered about what he wants to do, as in overly passionate in a good way, and that's absolutely fine. But I don't think he was ever going to have anybody give him any ideas about.
No, he didn't. He didn't want me to tell him.
No. You can see that every time he mentions any other businesses, and he's always very feisty about it. I think, I think I saw him recently on social media about if anybody else opens pizza, then and good for him. Do you know what I mean?
No, I saw one he said about stick to your fish and chips. I know where it was directed.
So Italian, isn't it?
So I mean, it's
festering in his kitchen in a rage.
So it's important for us to have an Italian chef who's been experienced, and because we know that we're entering into a market.
We had mostly Polish chefs in Havana, in all honesty, and a lot of them were great, to be fair. So
when we expand, we will probably go down that route, but we'll be trained in Chester if we grow Dodo, if it's successful. But I was very conscious that Chester does have a community of Italians, and he would be quite vocal and may cause us some issues, so I wanted to make sure that was,
there's plenty of people around who are going to eat pizza looking at it's not from strength to strength, know. So I think you're always going to have enough people around if you tick all the boxes, aren't you? That's bottom line.
Well, hopefully we will. So I mean, it's looking good at the moment. The interior's looking good, and the test pizzas look pretty good. The guy knows what he's doing, so I love pizza. So
I'm a big fan of it. Just people get so competitive about it. The guys at Northern Soul in Manchester blocked me on Twitter, and it's 40 miles away for one thing. They're pretty sure they didn't invent the cheese toasty. If I was a burger bar, would they have had to block every burger bar in a 40-mile radius? Seemed like a really obviously if somebody opened a cheese toasty cafe in Chester, I would find them and kill them. That wouldn't be cool, would it? Do you know what I mean? I'd be like, really? Take them down on social media, I probably would. But 40 miles away, I thought that was a little slightly
Chester's really hard as well on restaurant businesses. If you make it in Chester, because it is such a tough market in Chester, people come to it and they go, "Oh, it's really idyllic," and it's beautiful.
And then they become very loyal, don't they?
But it's a tough market because it's got a lot of food places in it, a lot of ones that are struggling because it just isn't enough people going around for that business. And you go into Chester in the evening and it's pretty dead, it's not the busiest of cities. There's no real drinking culture.
It's not a party town, that's for sure. It used to be once upon a time, and unless it's racist.
There's no offices in Chester really, is there?
Yeah,
There's no big
true actually. They've that far all out, that's what made the difference.
Well, they pushed them all out of town. They pushed them into the business park, which had the effect that, no one now goes straight for a drink after work.
Yeah, for a drink in town after work, that's true actually.
And then they wonder, why is it so quiet?
Yeah.
Fucking hell, you're the reason why,
that's true. But it's, I find that the Cestrians themselves can be quite super loyal. Like I've seen places that have opened and they've got another unit, say in another, sort of another town close in that sort of Cheshire region, like Shrewsbury or whatever, and then they cut and are successful and they come in Chester and all of the Cestrians are like, there. It's quite a small world, so people do, they do like to support the people who are also, local and rather than.
You've definitely seen it in the last few years, and not just in Chester, but across the board. Really, is that people are stepping away from the brands and going more to the independents or what they perceive as being independents, which I think is a good thing. It's a lot of these brands that have gone bust, they've deserved to go bust because they just didn't deliver on what they. I mean, and that's that's the downside of getting so big and being too removed from the business and trusting it with someone else. But also, it wasn't a great delivery of the product. Really, it was a very basic
not
product
at a reasonable price. I think. Yeah, I think that's the thing is people are realising they can get something a bit unique maybe and. There is the service side of it because, of course, people who are working in an independent as a rule rather than in a big chain, in a big chain they're being led by a manager who's definitely not being paid enough. They get away with paying a general manager, £18,000 in some of these ZZ type chains.
Yeah.
So they're not asked and they're leading the team. I mean, frankly, it's what they say, look after the staff and the staff look after the customers. And it makes absolute sense, I've had some managers in the past, mostly women sadly, who are utter bastards. And they're the ones that you just think, well, fuck you and cut corners. I never understood that, fear mentality with managers because it doesn't motivate staff. So they all get involved. They get equally passionate and then everybody has a good experience, both from, customers and the people working there.
Yeah.
You definitely get that here.
Yeah, I think, look, definitely, I mean, you've seen it even in your posts, your interaction with some of the other independents as well.
I'm all about that.
I mean, Northgate has become a bit of a hub for independent businesses, which is interesting to see how they get on. But it's good. I mean, I like it because it's obviously it's good for us as well because it's becoming a bit more of a kind of destination now.
Yeah, destination for food, definitely.
And obviously with the development that's going on around it, and a lot of student partners going on around it as well. I think it's good because you see the big restaurants are all down the other end where the old MFI used to be, and they're struggling. They're not doing particularly well. I mean, obviously, was it called Chilango, wasn't it? Chimichangas. That closed.
That massive restaurant called around there, sitting there empty. And the one at the other end, what's the other one called at the other end?
There's lots of going.
Yeah,
that's
have you ever been past there and there's more than 10 people in there? Surely not going to survive.
Yeah, well, we used to pinch some of the chefs from there, so we knew exactly what they were taking there. So, and I know.
What the overhead's like in a place like that? Jesus.
Well, I know. I think Chimichangas. What the hell was it called again? Chimichanga.
Chimichangas. Yeah, they're owned by the Carlisle Group, which is venture capital.
Well, they were paying about 130 grand on rent.
Wow.
So then you add your rates onto that. That's 200,000 before they get any bums on seats.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
But that's where it's one of the reasons for a lot of these places have failed because they went in a bigger way than me. They private equity owned and they just tried to build numbers.
Yeah.
And they were just taking premises and paying stupid money.
Research those kind of. I mean, even Opera Grill, it might be banging a lot of the time in there because the Cheshire housewives like to be in there drinking prosecco that somebody else paid for, and but the overheads in that place, just a staff bill alone to be able to staff 3 floors with God knows how many. I mean, there must be 200 covers in there easily, is there?
I've only been in there once, to be honest with you, so I don't know a lot about that or who owns that one. But
it's the same people as Piccolino's, it's individual restaurants.
Okay. Well, I know the thing with the private equity companies, their mentality is build it quick, and then sell it.
Yeah.
and then basically that's where they make their money. And the problem is, because the arse fell out of that market at that point, no one was there to buy it from them. So the ones that were left holding the baby have gone, gone tits up basically. But that's the mindset of the private equity. They're not there for the longevity. They're not there for the good of the people or the good of the staff or the good of the business. They're there to make money, and that's what they do. They do it there, and then they move on to the next one. You've got no real sort of feeling towards it.
No personal investment. That's the thing, isn't it? It's purely financial. It's business investment. There's no actual emotional or personal investment.
Right. Okay. I think we've done quite a lot, haven't we?
Covered it.
Hour and 10 minutes. That was pretty good.
Was that?
Yeah. That was great.
Yeah, but we would definitely want to. If you're interested, I'm not going to push you down one route or the other.
I'm on the fence. A part of me is anxiety there because I just think everybody will think, who the fuck does she think she is? So there's partly that. Obviously, belief. This meltdown. Obviously, I believe. I get it. I get that this. I get that people see this and think, fuck, that's so simple. I could do that. And there are, plenty of people out there with a bit of money in the bank who would prefer to buy a business that somebody else has thought through. I do get that for sure. I think at the moment I'm on that cusp where, as I say, I need that next challenge, but I also have no money at all, so that's very limiting in everything, obviously. So I'm going to have to find out a means of going forward, which will go in my pocket.
But the good thing about franchising is that most of the investment that you're making is your time, so it's not necessarily monetary. There are how long's a piece of string in terms of what you want to put money into it. You can spend a lot of money, and if you want to, if you're taking on a franchise consultant, they are, you're paying them a retainer, you're paying them for every franchise that they bring in, and then they also want to charge you for doing your ops manual and things like that.
Yeah.
The more you do yourself, then you can steer away from all that. I can give you a basic franchise agreement. I can give you my franchise agreement, and we can just change the pieces that are needed to be changed, and then you've got a format for it, because I'm in the same industry as you, so a lot of the things would be applicable, although it's it's different food, but it doesn't really talk about the details of the food. It's it's about how you manage it, and those expectations will probably be the same from you as they are from me. So have a think about it. We'll have another chat again. I'll bring some wine next time and get this.
We've got the opening, isn't there?
Hi folks, I hope you enjoyed this new episode format. Make sure you let me know in the comments who you'd like me to interview next, any ideas. Don't forget that you can follow Laura and Meltdown on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at MeltdownChester. If you don't follow me already, I share motivational tips and vlogs on business, franchising and entrepreneurship, and you can find them on Instagram at DesPhoebe, on Facebook at The Franchise Entrepreneur, and on Twitter at PhoebeDes. I'll see you again next week, and don't forget, don't let your reality get in the way of your dreams.